Good evening, everyone. It is 6:31 p.m. and it is January 31st, Tuesday. We're here at the Development and Government Relations Committee meeting. My name is Tessa Murphy-Romboletti. I'm the chair of the DNGR committee, and I'm joined this evening by committee members, Councillor Joe McGivern, Councillor Jenny Rivera, Councillor Dave Bartley, and Councillor Bacon can't be here with us this evening. She has a commitment. So also online, we're joined by Councillor Will Puelo and Councillor Jose Maldonado Velez. There are several guests here in the council chambers. We have department heads and city staff, and also committee members and folks that we're going to hear from this evening. So we will get this meeting started, and I'll entertain a motion to take item 1.
I'll make a motion to take number 1 off the table, invite the committee members in to grab a chair.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Come on in. Welcome.
Tell them it's mandatory. You can go either way. Just help yourself.
Awesome. And just before we get started, I'd love to just have everyone introduce themselves. And when you're speaking into the microphone, you want to make sure that the green light is on. That means that your microphone's on. And then you can shut it off afterwards, or we'll just have a nice conversation this evening and learn more about what you've been working on. So the first item is the Whiting Street Reservoir Committee Study Report. And here this evening we have, I'll start on this end and we'll work our way over.
My name is Harry Craven, and I'm on the study committee. What else do you need to know?
I think that's pretty good. Yeah, great, thank you.
Hello, my name is David Conti. I'm the manager of the Hoyoke Waterworks.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Marlene Connor, and serving to chair our little group for now and the Whiting Street Reservoir Study Committee.
Thank you.
Kate Krookemeyer. I was also on the committee as the representative from the planning board.
Thank you.
Dave Moore. I'm a member of the committee and a longtime neighbor of the Whiting Street Reservoir.
Thanks, Dave. And I see we also are joined by Jeff Horan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff Horan. I'm also a member of the Whiting Street Reservoir Study Committee and a member of the Holyoke Conservation Commission. I'm sorry I'm not there in chambers with you, but I'm glad to be here remotely. Thank you.
Really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll Zoom too.
Councilor Puelo?
Yep.
Yes. Did acknowledge him.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Appreciate you looking out. All right, so why don't we start? I believe there's a presentation or just you guys are going to introduce what you've done. The committee should also have the packet that was sent. Thank you, Jeffrey. So I'll let you take it from here.
Certainly. Thank you, Tessa, and everyone, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this evening to present the work that we did, and to thank you all because I think we collectively appreciated the opportunity to work together. It was, for a lot of us that have been in Holyoke a lot of years, the reservoir is a really important place, and we enjoyed working together. The first thing I want to do is to recognize the work and leadership of Sue Ellen Panich. She was our chair, and she passed away just a few weeks ago. She was able to work with us on the final product that we submitted, and in general, she'll be missed. She was a strong leader for many people in this community on a lot of issues. She was a mentor to many of us. I remember smashing bottles on Saturday morning, recycling center with Sue Ellen. Anyway, so just wanted to acknowledge the work and leadership of Sue Ellen for all of us to get this done. And I think most importantly, what we'd like to leave with this evening would be the support of this committee to present to the full city council and to maybe work together to talk about next steps and a strategy to move some things forward. what I'm going to do is just talk briefly about our process and review. We'll talk briefly through our recommendations, and Kate's going to contribute with me on presenting, and please feel free to stop and ask questions along the way, obviously. The reservoir is part of a collection of stunning properties in this community. It's important to the city. It's important to the people that live here. Since we were all here through the pandemic, I noticed how much more important all of our resources got to be able to be outside and commune with nature and appreciate the great resources that we had. And this project, to us, really became a chance to identify for the city how to balance the need for the city to continue the availability and protection of this resource for the future, while also enabling access for education and recreational opportunities for the greater community. So there's a balance here, and we took efforts to make sure that we could try to do that. We also want to acknowledge the stewardship of Holyoke Waterworks, actually, in maintaining the reservoir in its perfect state, and they've been really helpful to us through this process. We spent a lot of time talking to Dave and Dave and crew, and so I just want to acknowledge all the work that they do every day, and hopefully, we can continue that. In order to get started on the plan, what we wanted to do was to understand current conditions, the regulatory environment, plans for the area, and to try to understand future needs. So we talked to the public as well. We did a public meeting. We did that in person in this room, and we did it also made it available on Zoom because pandemic was really fun for everybody here. In general, from on the regulatory side, we want to investigate the laws and protections that exist. We met with Crystal Barnes from the city, so understood the city environment, the state environment. We talked to the state DCR, really just understand the government regulatory process, because that's important at the base of all this. We read through 20 or 30 years of plans that have been done in that North Holyoke reservation, reservoir, all that area, so we could understand the context. We did a historical tour, so we could understand, how the old property became the new property, and went through and had an opportunity to do that. We also went through and spent time talking to stakeholders, to all the adjacent property owners, Wyckoff Park. We talked to the folks at the State Appalachian Mountain Club, just to really understand the context here of everything that was going on, and again, important to communicate with the public. As part of the review also, we connected with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, and they have we took advantage of some of their local technical assistance time, and we had them really look at two specific questions for us. One was to review reservoirs and other water sources in the Commonwealth, what sort of processes they have to protect the water, and also what sorts of recreational access is allowable. And so that was important for us to at least understand, at this point, what could be done. And I think as part of the work also wanted to look at the possibility of revenue generation with any different opportunities, some broader recreational activities, because that's always a thing people want to be able to do more, and above all, really understand as much as we could about how to secure the water as a source for Holyoke's future. And that was really the most important piece for us. In our view, the future access and recreation that we talk about really needs to be consistent with the primary use, which is providing a safe drinking water supply and source for the residents of Holyoke. And that means the public access, the type of intensity of public recreation uses need to be planned and controlled, kind of what Holyoke Waterworks does now. They do a terrific job managing and making sure that there's not too many things out of whack here. Our research found, in general, that It's a small 371 acre parcel. It's not very large. It's not even enough to protect the entire watershed of the 500 million gallon water supply if it's needed for the future. So it's important in context to recognize that the size of the reservoir really drives what you can and can't do there. And that was important to us. And it was also in some of our conversations with Holyoke Waterworks, and I'm glad Dave's here, but it was noted that at some point in the not too distant future, there might be a need to use the reservoir as a source of water. So again, that's something that we've been keeping in the back of our mind here. And in general, while we read a lot of plans and programs and talked to all the adjacent properties and stakeholders, there's no real overarching vision or a comprehensive plan to guide use there, or even the broader context of, the reservation, the reservoir, the old ski area property in Mountain Park. I mean, there's a whole lot of things there, but there's no real vision for that part of the world. And that led to us thinking about what our recommendations ought to be as a result of that work. So we put together five recommendations for your consideration. And the first one is to ensure the long-term protection of the Whiting Street Reservoir as a resource for the city. We think that one of Holyoke's greatest assets is that it's a water-rich city. And there are certain protections that already exist, like the Article 97 stuff, and there are other state and federal rules. And it's not a drinking water source currently, although, as was noted earlier in speaking with Holyoke Waterworks, there might be a need for water in the future. And again, recognizing that Holyoke Waterworks has been a great steward of that reservoir. Conditions change on the ground. The drought last summer, for example, gets us to think about the real, the long-term need of maybe having an additional water source might not be, that long away as the weather conditions change. So that's really important. And in the report, we talked about a desire to figure out a strong way to ensure protection of that reservoir as continuing to be a protected resource for the community. We talked about a conservation easement. There are other ways to do that protection. We just think there ought to be a commitment from the city to ensure that there's a commitment to contain and protect that reservoir. So that was really our most important, the most important thing that we wanted to provide. There should be protection, and recognize that there's flexibility that Holyoke Waterworks needs to do that work. So however the protection could be done, it should be done recognizing that there's a real need to do that. Holyoke Waterworks has done a great job, and we just need to figure out the best way to do that in the future. Number two was to assure the availability of the reservoir for future water. I mean, clearly, again, droughts happen. We haven't had any snow this winter, for example. So you don't know how the weather's going to change. So water is going to be one of those things that is going to separate Holyoke from a lot of other places because, man, we have water, and a lot of people are going to be looking to maintain that level of resource. So it's really important to give Holyoke Waterworks or whatever the tools are that we as a city need to do to assure that that reservoir can be a source of potable water at some point in the future. And that's going to, obviously be a lot of money. But that is a thing that's really important to make sure that Holyoke Waterworks has the tools and resources that it needs to do that work. The third recommendation, and I'm just going to start and turn it over to Kate, is really to improve public access and enhance community education, recognizing that needs to continue to be a passive form of recreation. Just because the reservoir, you look at it and you think it's big, but comparatively speaking, to do things that we need to do, passive recreation needs to continue to be the baseline here. And so we need to find other ways to enable public use and access. When we were at the public meeting, people talked about a little bit of signage, talked about benches, like there are benches at Ashley Reservoir, things like that. So there was some discussions like that of doing additional public access, but Kate's gonna pick it up from there.
The final two recommendations we had sort of build on that. The only way we think there can be enhanced or real expansion of recreation activities would be to look at the side of the mountain as a whole. And that led us, that recognition, and also the fact that when we talked with all the abutters, there was really a great desire to work together, and there had been efforts in the past to work together, but they hadn't really been sustained. People had shared concerns, and I think a lot of shared vision, but I think we're asking for a structure for that to happen within. And so recommendation 4 is to develop a vision statement and a master area plan to guide the use and protect resources and engage stakeholders, but really to create a vision. So the area-wide plan is important to better protect the watershed because, as Marlene said, the watershed is much larger than the property that Holyoke Water Works protects. If there were going to be more than basic enhancements to passive recreation, it would need to be on more than just Holyoke Water Works land. It would need to, trails cross onto other properties, for instance. It can't happen in isolation on just one of those parcels. And there's really potentially great value for the city as a whole if we can look at that side of the mountain, the jewel property that it is, as a larger area that could use our protection and our engagement. And then the recommendation 5 would be really about implementation of that plan. Needs somebody to drive it forward. The stakeholders and the abutters talked about efforts that they had had in the past to do things which were often successful for a short period of time, but always faltered because there wasn't somebody who could sustain the effort over time. And we really think that the city probably has that role and should play that role. I think that's we can say more, but I think that's the baseline.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
That's it.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm going to pause there and check with my fellow committee members on questions. I don't see any online. Any comments, anything else that other folks want to weigh in on here? Councilor Barkley.
I'll weigh in. First of all, thank you for taking the order up. This is an order that Councilor Mike Sullivan and I created. We put it into ordinance for the purposes of setting up this committee. From the start, our vision was to have Mrs. Panish be the chair, even though that was kind of preordained. Maybe that wasn't exactly right, but that was always our thought when Mike and I originally met in my office 3 years ago to do this. So I want to credit, a lot of credit goes to Councilor Sullivan for really getting this going, and I just helped with some verbiage, that's all. But we always wanted Mrs. Panish to lead it, and we were grateful for all of you and Kip Foley for participating in it. I know Mike has his take. I've shared that. Mike shared his take with probably several of you. He's not here right now, and I'm not going to speak on his behalf. I'm just grateful that this exists. I'm grateful that for your efforts, all of your efforts on this. Because there's a lot of time. I happened to watch at least half the Zoom meetings. I didn't watch all of them, but I certainly watched half of them. And so they were always well run, and they're always very informative. A lot of good guest speakers that came in too, and it was helpful to me. Certainly, I'd like to probably well, at a certain point, maybe we'll have to have an ad hoc committee to sort of figure out the vision thing. And then if there's a way we can implement it, then perhaps we can implement it. I'm going to recommend that you perhaps connect with Mr. Conti. You're not going to get a bare resource on all things water in the city, right? I mean, Dave, thank goodness he hasn't retired. And we'll just, once you do that, once you meet with Dave, then maybe Dave can connect with myself or anybody on this committee. And if it makes sense, perhaps we could develop some kind of a coordinated plan with some of the other entities which you describe in here, which I certainly saw them on the Zoom meetings that I watched. The other entities meeting the abutters and all other interested parties. So to me, I think the summary says it all. It's very easy to read and it's very straightforward. And again, thank you to the committee. Thank you, of course, to Mrs. Panich, for sure, and in memory to Mrs. Panich. We don't want to forget her. Thanks to Mike Sullivan and Kip, and thank you.
Thanks. So first I'm going to have Councilor McGivern, and then I see Councilor Givner, and then I see Jeff, and then Kate. Okay.
Kate, did you want to respond to that? Or?
Yeah, just briefly, I think that we were all very happy to be part of this process, but I think I speak for everyone to say that I think we feel that our work here with delivering this report is at an end. I think probably all of us would be happy to be invited to do any further work, but we don't necessarily envision us as having further work at this point. One point that maybe I should have made is that I think in order to put together a vision statement and a master plan, that I think that would be the work of some other body, and that it might be able to find funding, for instance, from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission or some other entity. We would certainly be supportive of that work happening, but I don't think we envision ourselves as having the charge to do it right now.
Thank you. Councilor McGivern?
Thank you, Chair, and sorry if I overstepped.
No,
my
you
bounds.
didn't.
I know
You're
I
good.
talk,
You're
you
good.
know. Excuse me. I want to say thank you to everyone. And I know a lot of hours were put into work by this commission, a lot of, not just hours, but a lot of hard work and a lot of work that came from the heart and came from Hoyokers that understand what this is all about. And at first when I read this, I said, did it stop short the first time? And then I read it a second time and I started seeing it. And Marlene and Kate, thank you tonight because I see it even clearer. I'm a big Conti fan, and I know his signature is written all over this, and it should be, because he understands the reservoirs inside out from here out to Southampton. And I think the commission got the message too from David and Mike and from the entire city council is, yes, we do want to protect, and we always want to protect our water, our watershed, and all our conservation land. It's very important to the entire mountain. But the history of the mountain is recreation, passive recreation that can fit there and fit there, you know, within the laws, within the common sense approach. And I think this is the foundation it now gives the city. And as Councilor Bartley said, the next step is to bring maybe something forward that we can start looking at. How do we work passive recreation and certain things, uses into it? You know, we do in other reservoirs within the city, and we do it, we don't say it under the radar, David, but we say we do it with a lot of thought, and the people who do, whether it's a running activity at the Ashley Reservoir or
Thursday nights.
whatnot, it's, yes, you know, it's important. It's important that all of the residents of Holyoke and our region can enjoy this wonderful asset. We will never see our big source of water opened up to the public, which is unfortunate but necessary, and that's Tycomedy. But that is, if you've never seen it, it's the water department. Well, we did open up a tour once. I should apologize for that. Kevin Jourdain sponsored it, and we did have a little bit of a response from the public at large. But it's an incredible asset, and it's an incredible resource to the city. Not just our drinking water, but what the founding fathers did when they bought the land in Southampton was incredible vision. But you've given us vision to go forward with, and I can only say thank you on behalf of all my constituents for what you've done. I know it took a lot of hours, but it looks like you had a little fun doing it too. and which is part of it. And we thank you deeply. And this is the base, and now I think we can go forward and start seeing what we can do reasonably, within the guidelines. And when David retires, we'll just open up the whole place. Thankfully, the city council's got the final vote on that, David.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilor McGivern. Councilor Givner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is it's really interesting and exciting. I've followed this on and off, and I just love to hear that it's going to, and that all plans are around the conservation of the spaces and obviously a water source, since they're becoming less and less available in our communities and our nation. So I love many of these ideas, and I think as long as we move forward with the idea of protection and that the usage is more like, passive recreation, no motor vehicles, nothing commercial, I think it'll be really great. But these are great resources that everyone should be able to use from our communities and the surrounding communities. So I'm really excited to see this report, and I think it's pretty amazing. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Jeff?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to say, I think it's, we appreciated the very focused charge that City Council gave us for this project, and so we stayed within that focus but we did make recommendations that go beyond that, because as we looked at this, it was very clear that the protection of the reservoir was what people wanted, and quite frankly, what the city needs because of the water components of that. But when you start looking at the area as a whole, there's a whole lot more to it. There are a lot more opportunities. If the trustees and DCR and Mr. Shore's property, and if you looked at Fish and Wildlife property, if all those were brought together for consideration, then there's a tremendous amount of things that then enhanced recreation, enhanced educational opportunities could occur up there. But that requires an overall vision and some more cooperation and coordination of the adjacent landowners. And actually, when the adjacent landowners came and spoke with us, they all asked for that, and they pointed back to the time when the ski area was winding down, and it was clear that protection of the resource that was there was in some danger. And so the city stepped in and made sure important areas were protected, and so the city played a key role in that. But I think the city it seems as if the city has kind of backed away from that, and there is now no vision to carry that forward. And so we recommended two things. First of all, that there be this cooperative council that really engages the landowners, and again, that probably has to be somehow facilitated by the city. So that's a commitment from the city, and we didn't point to who would have that responsibility, but it does seem important. But then the broader North Holyoke plan, that seemed the most important thing of all. But that also requires a commitment from the city. I know the mayor has spoken about taking up some master planning efforts, although I don't know where he is on that right now. But it does require a commitment. But it seems for the city of Holyoke that it would really be worth that commitment to there's just so many opportunities. So with that, I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Not seeing any other comments or hands, so thank you all very much for your work and your presentation and the recommendations. I especially enjoyed the recommendation about making it more accessible to the community. I remember the Schools on Skis program at Mount Tom. So that was a big deal when we were in elementary school. So if we can bring efforts like that back, I think that's wonderful. But with that, I'll thank you for your time, and I'll entertain a motion that this is complied with.
Moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved.
Explain maybe to the commission now to go to the full city council.
Yes, of
and
course. So yes, our next full city council meeting is on Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday, the 7th. And we'll recommend we'll give an update on what you presented, and we'll recommend or let the full city council know that it's been complied with, and we can go from there on future orders that should be filed based on recommendations.
And I think the committee would be welcome to assist where we can in whatever activities as it's
That's good
appropriate.
news. Thanks, Marlene.
Wonderful. Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Appreciate it.
I'll make a motion to take number 2 off the table.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So item number 2 is that the Honorable City Council vote that the City of Holyoke accept the proposal and sell the surplus properties at 297, 301, and 303 Elm Street for $25,800 to Carrie and Arthur Natz. The properties are contiguous parcels of vacant land on Elm Street at the corner of Sargent Street. And we have our proponents are here this evening, and we're also joined by staff from the Office of Planning and Economic Development. So we'll give them a second while everyone kind of shifts in and out. It's poppin' here tonight. It's lit, as the kids say, right? That's what they say.
Lit.
Awesome. And just for those tuning in, we are also joined obviously by Councilor Givner. And then in the council chambers, we are joined by Councilor Anderson Burgos and Councilor McGee. From Planning and Economic Development, we have Aaron Vega and John Dijek. So I'm going to stop there and let you guys kick it off, and we're excited to hear what we have before us.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We're excited to keep moving property to be developed. So as this committee's role to oversee and work with OPED on moving these properties to get back on the tax roll and back to being developed, we have one of our developers that is with us tonight to got through the RFP process on this property. John Dijek can walk us through the overarching story of this one, which you're all familiar with. But I would just say the other thing, just real quick, I want to say I just want to give props to a lot of the new staff, particularly Jamie in purchasing and Jane in the law department. We've been able to work. John and I have been able to work with them, and we're getting ready to move again on getting some properties out there. So we have a pretty good list. We're going to start trying to move again about 3 properties a month to get the wheels going. We obviously had a little bit of a pause there when some staff changeover, but we've got a good list going, and we've got some good local developers, and we have a lot of interest calling into the office every day, so hopefully we can be in front of you some more, moving some property. But on that note, John Dijek, the Assistant Director of Economic Development, can kind of walk you through the packet that you got, and then of course we have the winning bidders here who are doing some great projects in the city. So,
good evening, everyone. John Dijek from the Office of Planning and Economic Development. I'm pleased that we're here with Arthur and Carrie Natz, who we've come to know over the last couple of years on a few different projects. So the process is our standard RFP process for the sale of these properties. They were declared surplus several years ago. If you can see from the notes, there's quite a bit of history with these properties. From at one point looking at a project with the Holyoke Housing Authority and then coming back to the city. We've went out to bids at least on 2 occasions. Most recently, this last summer, I think, was the last time we went out for bid on these properties, and there was some good interest. The Bethlehem Baptist Church across the street, which is a staple in that vicinity, was very interested, and good people to work with. There was one other proposal for housing and a proposal from Arthur and Carrie Natz, for a housing development. So we went through the process. The review committee considered the proposals, analyzed them and the pluses and minuses, and made a recommendation to Mayor Garcia to move forward with this proposal. And the proposal is for new housing, 24 to 32 units of housing. One of the major factors of our interest in working with these folks is they own the apartment buildings right next door at 287 and 291 Elm Street, which have needed some work. And I think what we've seen is, even separate from this process, the commitment of these folks to improve those properties and help improve the area. So we were very interested in working with them to continue their efforts. And one of the things that evolved in our review process was that there is some water infrastructure that needs to be completed before a development can occur there. And so working with Mr. Conti, who confirmed for us that work is scheduled in 2024 to replace the water infrastructure at that section of Elm Street and other areas of the neighborhood. It coincided with the plans that these folks brought forward. I think in just summarizing it, we've done our due diligence, and there was quite a bit of information in the packet here. The amount offered by the developers is $25,800 for the 3 lots, but the investment potential is much more substantial, and that's what really was interesting for us in their proposal. So I think I'll leave it at that. And
I would just add one other. So just also so you know, this was property that had gone out earlier in the year, and the proposals weren't really conducive to the community and that neighborhood. And I think one of the things that that the Nats brought to this was really something that was complementary to the area, reflecting on both the brick structures and the buildings that were still there, as well as the Hope 6 projects basically across the street. So we were really, when we put the RFP out, we really made note of that. We were starting to look at these neighborhoods, we want to keep the character of these neighborhoods, even though we have new development. So, obviously duplexes have their role, sort of redone row houses and Philadelphia row houses have their role, apartment buildings have their role, but they came with some interesting ideas. And again, I think this is really in tune with what we're trying to do around the city in these neighborhoods. So just want to put that out there too, that again, when John talks about that due diligence, we're not just going for anything that comes across the table. We want to see someone that has the wherewithal and the commitment to get it done, has the financial resources, and has the experience. And so those factors all come into play.
Great, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add at this point?
Hi, Carrie Natz. Just kind of to summarize a little bit, if you haven't read the proposal, and to introduce ourselves. So we live on Arnodale Avenue up by the old Yankee Peddler, in a 2-family, which we've owned for 20-something years or so. And we own 2 buildings on Elm Street, 287, 291. 287 is a vacant building, which we have a building permit. We are just going to be closing on financing in order to make that into a 19-unit apartment building. And we currently own 291, which is fully rented as a 16-unit that needed significant improvement as well. We felt that the lots next door fit well with not only where we are in the city, that we live close by, and that our tenants could all be in the same kind of vicinity. We wanted to also give housing to people, quality housing, not just something to just make the most bang for your buck or put the most houses in, but we wanted to make sure that there was green space and stuff, place where people could sit, or playground or something besides just concrete and a building. one of the things that had been asked of us is what would we do, because it can't support housing or any use that requires water in the next couple years. And so what our primary thing when we bought our buildings 2 years ago was to install cameras to prevent crime, work with the city, install lighting, put up fencing. Right now there's a lot of abandoned vehicles on the lot, a lot of trash, that type of stuff that we try to keep up as good as we can close to our building. And so we want to kind of keep that in mind with putting in lighting and cameras and keeping it clean and possibly fencing it, maybe making some beneficial insect gardens, things like that, so that the neighborhood still continues to look decent and nice for the people that live there.
Great, thank you. Thanks. So I'll pause there and stop to see if any committee members. Sure, Councilor Bartley.
First of all, President McGee's here too. I'm not sure if we recognize him, but
Oh, I did.
It's stuck in the back.
Yep,
Okay.
I did.
I'll make sure we did.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And so I'm going to ask you a couple questions for the department, then I'm going to ask you a couple questions. When you do speak, because you have a soft voice, just make sure you speak into the microphone. We get criticized for a lot, but our number one criticism is we don't talk into the mic. So I know, and people do watch these meetings, and they certainly want to hear from both of you, okay? Okay, so how long have these been vacant lots? What is owed on them, gentlemen? And about what point do we declare them to be surplus available for disposition?
Well, I'm not sure the time, how long they've been, but they were city properties, so there's no back taxes.
Well, at one point they were owned by somebody, so do we know the background there?
Yeah, it's in excess of 20 years. I don't have the updated numbers. I think I do have them, and I can provide what from the treasurers when the taking happened, but that was a really long time ago. I think it was in the early 2000s. As far as the other part of your question, what was
Surplus, I think. When did it?
the surplus?
Yeah.
I'd have to check that, but they were several years ago surplus. They were all declared surplus.
Okay, and then we've advertised this how and consistently, or
At least on 2 occasions, and we actually had a pretty robust effort to market with, there's a standard required process with the Central Register with the state, notifying abutters, mailings to anyone that's been interested. There was a pretty extensive list of developers that had interest. The last couple of years, this really came to the surface for 2 reasons. One is a neighbor across the street was very interested. Councilor Murphy at the time was involved, and the Nats had actually inquired about this property once they were getting into the 287 and 291 apartment buildings. So we knew there was interest from neighbors, and we followed the standard process to publicize it.
okay, and what's the issue with the water? I'm not clear on that.
Oh, so too quick. So just to go back. So in addition to the obviously purchasing runs the listing and all in the Central Register and all that, but we also have a growing list of people that we also send off all our RFPs to, including our Realtors Roundtable that we've developed. So we're really trying to get the word out more. So we're doing that with all of our RFPs. So we do the traditional and the required listings, and then of course try to just get it out to our contacts. The second question was you just asked was
The water infrastructure.
the water. Yeah, so it's the amount of units that were proposed. When in conversation with Dave Conti, they were concerned about the water pressure availability, and so this, as was mentioned, this area was already on his list for development, for infrastructure improvements. So it was more about capacity. It was the capacity issues there.
Just to add, I have a pretty detailed message from Mr. Conte, and I'd be happy to share that, but it's part of the Phase 3A water main replacement project that's currently under design with works to start in 2024. He actually said that could move up if funding became available sooner, but it's a pretty, as usual, a pretty detailed response from Mr. Conte.
Okay, and now is that a prerequisite for this development?
That is my
I
understanding.
think it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if that go.
I can expand
That usually my voice carries. I don't
Yeah,
need a
just
microphone.
pull the mic up though to you.
All right. How's that? We paid for an engineer to do a flow test as we're going to be tying into the existing water line for 287, 287 Elm, which has been vacant for 25 years. That test showed us that we'll barely have enough for a sprinkler system and potable water for 287 Elm. So as the lots came out to bid, we approached the city and said, we've just done this work for our existing building that's under development. If we propose to put housing units here, we're going to have an issue of not enough water. So that's how the thing came to light. And I don't know if there's any other part of that question.
No, I get it, because I see that in here. So, right, so that's kind of explained in paragraph C. So I did read that part.
Okay.
So you kind of gave us a heads up, but now you're procuring, you're asking us to approve a sale of 3 lots, and we don't have a realistic. I mean, I'm going to get to my compliments in a second, but we're going to try to understand. We've got to get the water in there first, and we don't even have enough water for their 287. So now we want to do 3 new developments, and we don't have a timeline on when that's going to be developed, and you want us to approve conveyance, and the reverter clause is going to bounce it back. I mean, that's usually 1 or 2 years, right? So how do you get that done?
Sure, we extended the reverter on this one, and plus you're able to get an extension on the reverter. So we work with the law department on this. Didn't we put a longer reverter on this one? Yeah. So this one we're going to put a longer reverter on that. So this is allowing them to start planning this into their pro formas as they continue to get other property online and look for that funding. So we thought that the in alignment with the infrastructure work being done, it would line up correctly. That's why this proposal works well, since there are also butters, but this way they can put this into their timeline of pro forma, and it'll line up right with the infrastructure being done. And I think, like I said, we're going to put at least a 3-year, I think it's a 3-year reverter on this one. But again, any reverter, if they come to us and construction's happening, they can get an extension. But we're always, trying to keep those eyes on some of these developers that let these reverters go on.
Just to add, please, one of the other motivations to move forward was to get this property into local responsible owners that will take care of it and have a plan to develop it in the future.
Right. Okay. In here, there's a paragraph about financial wherewithal. It says, attached to this proposal is a bank doc. Could you want to just direct me to the page where it is in here?
That was not included in what was sent. It was reviewed.
Okay. Well, can I have it?
You can, sure.
Because it's referenced in here. I don't see it. So, okay. So I'm not saying we have to. I mean, if I'm going to make a vote on this, I want to see their wherewithal on this. Okay. So that's just me asking some firm questions because I've done this more than once. Okay, but I do want to compliment you for stepping up for your work you've done before. And we're always grateful to hear from fellow Holyoakers looking to do this. So I'm glad to meet you both, and I'm glad that you're here before us. I take it what I'm hearing is that we've got 3 empty lots here, that there's nobody really coming online, that you're here because you have budding lots and you see potential going on there. But realistically, we're not looking to this to get the water line until 2024. That means you're not going to get a shovel in the ground until 2025, and you're not going to have anything built until probably 2026. So I'm just being realistic for all of us here. So that when we read these documents and then we take these votes, that we have some kind of and that's pushing it. Okay, so that's really why I want to see your financials here, and I don't know how long that commitment is going to last. When we do reverters, I've never seen one for 3 years. I'm not saying they haven't existed, but I've seen it for a year. Yes, what the department has said is true. Well, they can often be extended, but they have to come back to us for a vote to extend it. So it doesn't just happen by the law department. It happens. They have to come. You have to always come back here for that. But nevertheless, plans. Things aren't built immediately, and we understand that this is going to take more than a minute. But sometimes when the public sees this, oh, okay, well, boy, there is 2023, and here we go. Well, no, not really. So we have a little bit of a time lag. Now, if I misstated something, I'm going to ask you to correct me right now. But if I didn't misstate something, then I'll stop and listen to other questions. I mean, I'm predisposed to vote to support this because I don't like to have the city government own private property. I'd rather have it out in private hands. I think the private sector can do a lot better with it than the public sector can. But that's me. But I certainly want to hear other questions, and I certainly want to see your financials relative to that. Because as the chair will tell you, we're just going to recommend, no matter what we do. We'll take the real vote next Tuesday, and that's how that's going to be. Okay. So thanks.
If I could just respond.
Sure.
I agree with you wholeheartedly because we're just renovating 287. The structure's already there, and that's a 2-year project. So you're absolutely right. And then site design, architectural drawings. I think it took us 8 months for the building department to even give us our permit, if I'm correct. I know that there was a big lag time from the time that we even applied. So different.
6 months. Building department 2 months.
Total of 8 months.
Actually,
So
kind of speedy, so I'm glad to hear that.
I was gonna say I think that he has COVID brain because it was longer than that, but we'll let it go. Now I forgot the other thing I was gonna say. And to that, there can be no housing, whether it's 2 units or 24 units put on that lot with the existing water that's there. It did go out to bid before, and there was proposals. We were one of them that didn't require water in that on those lots, but they felt that housing was the primary focus for what they wanted to see on that lots, and that's why it went back out to bid. And so knowing that, that's kind of where we got to where we are with what we proposed.
Thank you.
And just a quick follow-up too, we agree, that's why we're trying to sell this property, just to get it out of the public hands into the private sector for sure. And this is sort of the reality, and especially with new costs and whatnot, and everything changing the construction. We have projects been going on 3-4 years that take long. So this is what we're doing. We're planning for the 3-4 year out stretch. That we know that we put these RFPs. It'd be great to get something built in 1 year, but we know the process and the reality. So I think working with developers that also understand that they've got a long-term plan, I think makes sense for us too.
Great. Thank you. Councilor McGivern?
Thank you, Chair. And welcome, and I appreciate your presence and your proposal here this evening to OPID, as always. The way I look at these things is you start with zero. And Arthur, I can't believe it's been 25 years. The city has received zero. It's a vacant lot. I drive by it. It's a mess. Neighbors are using it for everything from car repairs to I wear another hat, and I've been inside 287 in recent years, and I'm glad you're renovating it, and I'm glad because it's a sturdy, sound building, incredibly, with the woodwork and everything, but it needs some work, and it needed a lot of change because the people I was visiting you don't want to know, or you don't want them to be your tenants, if you understand my other hat. But it's incredible, the investment you're making on that property. I grew up on 139 Beach Street. 123 Pine Street was one of my hangouts with one of my friends in that whole area. There's a lot of good history there, and that building I love because I understand what it was then and what it can be now. So it makes a lot of sense. Your numbers are look good. The investment numbers are there. The proposals, I agree with housing. I think housing is the answer for these lots, for the neighborhood in general, with everything we're doing, from the Housing Authority to the Redevelopment Authority. I'm guessing it's going to be mixed market rent and mixed low income and so forth.
Go ahead.
So the current project we're doing, we have not taken any type of affordable housing grant or anything like that. Like every landlord, we accept Section 8 and any other type of market programs out there. So that'd be something that we might look into, is some type of affordable housing grant in exchange for units. We do have mixed housing in 291 where certain mobile voucher, voucher program in some of the units. So that'd be... Thank you. And the reverter is the key, I think, to most of us for two reasons.
One, and Mr. Vega, Aaron, you explained it, perfectly. We want to get a proposed use before the sale. Can't hold you to everything, but a use that makes sense for the neighborhood, that makes sense with developers that, we know we can trust. And that's the whole idea of the first part of a reverter. The second part of the reverter is, and I don't think the extension is probably as much the city's fault as it is the developer's fault, in terms of the water issue. But in terms of the second use is, we don't want people buying vacant property and then flipping it, 4 or 5 years down the road, or even worse, sitting on it for longer periods of time just to make a profit when they resell it. So the reverter protects the city's interest as far as that goes, but the investment is what we need and what I, speaking for myself, believe is what we want. And very good proposal, and you certainly have my support. And when when 123 Pine Street is done, can you let me know so I can grab a few friends and go look at it?
Absolutely. And 287, you can come see.
Yeah. Well, I have bad memories in 287. I won't mention. No, I'm just kidding.
Great, thank you. Councilor Puelo?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to Arthur and Carrie. This looks like a good project, extra investment in the city. I have a two-part question for OPED. Can they talk a little bit about what the other proposals were? I know they mentioned the church. What were the other proposals? And then the second part to that question is, in the packet, it talks about a scoring tabulation. So I'm just curious if maybe we can break down the scoring tabulation a little bit. And I mean, is there a form that we're using? Is that something we can provide with the scores on it? And then I'll have a question for Arthur and Carrie after. Thank you.
The reference the council made was to the first round, I believe, mentioned a church. So that was the first round, the RFPs that went out earlier in the year. So they did not answer this RFP. The other RFP was, another one was for duplex housing, and one was for a parking lot. So two duplexes, and the other proposal was a parking lot. So neither of which really answered the RFP when we said something to fit the neighborhood. So the second round, that was the I believe that was the ones we got. As you mentioned, in the first round there was a church that did bid, and then again, this is all run through purchasing. So I think we're happy to come in with purchasing and walk everybody through the whole process. But in general,
I'll just say that we actually did
okay.
discuss that in a DGR meeting over the summer about the purchasing process.
So we can go to the tape. So basically, yeah, I mean, so the review committee, there's a scoring of advantageous, strongly advantageous, advantageous, and not advantageous. And yeah, all the people, it's all public record, as we know as people know. So all the score sheets that are put together by the review committee are kept by the purchasing department. And those are public records. If someone, obviously the council could just request it, but obviously Freedom of Information requests, it's all public information. And actually, if you see the RFP going out, hopefully Friday, but probably next week, for the marketing, you'll see actually the score tabulation in the RFP, so people actually know what they're being judged on.
Okay, can we provide a copy of that, please, to Jeff, so that we can have it along with the financials, the scoring tabulation? Because I'm really interested in looking at it. And I would like to address the order and thank Councilor Bartley and Councilor Vacan for asking good questions, because I did watch the tape over the summer. I filed that order, I think Jose Maldonado filed it with me. And I do appreciate Councilor Bartley and Councilor Vacan for asking very good questions. There were some things that I thought, were just kind of totally glossed over, but that's okay. Maybe we'll file a new order and have some new conversations on it. My question to Arthur and Carrie is, a little bit on the financials part. Are you guys planning, I heard you guys mentioned an affordable housing grant. Are you guys planning on applying for any other grants or any other funding sources other than your personal, whatever personal assets you have going on?
At this time, no. Our personal finances, loans from local banks is our plan. And we kind of figured that we'd extend the way our existing properties are run with Wayfinders, I believe, is the one who's most prevalent in our building, helping some of our tenants pay their monthly rent. We figured that those are the folks that are most often calling us and knocking on our door, so we figured that that program would probably naturally extend in. And so we weren't looking at any particular grants or anything like that.
And just a quick point of clarification, and again, this could be a separate conversation with probably Alicia Zoller, probably the best. But just to clarify, and again, just because they haven't gone through these things, which is great, it would be low-income tax credits. They're not necessarily grants. And so what happens is low-income tax, they go for LIHTC, developers go for LIHTC. That puts a restriction on the income levels that can go into those units. So you've never done that. Section 8, separate whole program, if someone gets a voucher, they can go anywhere. As long as they pass any kind of entry application that a property owner has. So you've accepted Section 8, most of them managed by Wayfinders. They do great. Obviously, VOC manages vouchers as well, as does the Holyoke Housing Authority. But just, so a lot of developers, when they put together their pro forma, if they want to do a mix of affordable or low income and market rate, they can go for those tax credits. And that's usually where those come into play. But again, the Nats have not approached us about that. That's not through our office, obviously. That's at the state level, mostly through Mass Housing and through the state. And so if they decide to go that route, they'd probably work with the Office of Community Development.
Thank you. Councilor Bartley?
Thanks again. And again, I am very appreciative of your investment, okay? So I say it to everybody. So I want you to know that. I'm not glossing over that. And to the department, I appreciate your reaching out, and I heard what you said about the Realtor Roundtable, and I kind of like the sound of that, and I hope we hear more about the Realtor Roundtable.
Sure.
But I'm very concerned about the lack of water, the clarity on the water situation. If I could, to either Aaron or John, why do you want us to take a vote on this now without a clear understanding of the timeline for the water? Now, hearing what we just discussed, we don't have the water for 287. So 287 is, they're existing. Why do we have to take a vote tonight? I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but why wouldn't we just table this now in committee? I mean, tell me a reason why not to, and then get a clear picture on the water, Aaron? Because, I mean, that is just, to me, really critical.
Well, they can correct me. I don't think that 287 is in danger of not having enough water. You were at the level that was at the bare minimum, and that was like you knew you couldn't expand anymore.
We had to change the way the sprinkler system is designed for, okay. I think it's a dry system instead of half dry. Right. So, and then and I'm going to assume this is, if I can kind of answer your question, I believe, is that the lots have a lot of activity on them. There's unregistered vehicles, there's people living in their vehicles, there's people storing drugs in their vehicles, and also throwing trash there. Right now there's a metal pile, that type
if I may, so yep. That is all the more reason to get it to the private sector hands. I completely agree with you on that score. Yes, and I hope you can I don't know what you're going to do, block it off somehow, fence it off, or do whatever you have to do to try to prevent future occurrences. It's like I said, I'm predisposed to voting for it. The question is the timing of it.
Mm-hmm. But that's exactly...
That's
exactly... So if we can have private developers... there's plenty of private people that maintain their lots. So this would be key for us to maintain this lot by private developers. And going to Joe's point, they will be paying taxes, not much because it's empty lots, so we'll be getting some revenue back in after not getting anything. But to have someone be able to maintain those lots, that's the main thing. As we look block by block with the Flex Squad, et cetera, all this is either getting lots to be adopted by companies to maintain them, or to actually have people who invested in them. So that's the main.
I'll concede all that.
And then to have them have time to get their architects and all that other.
I'll concede all that too. I agree with all that, but the bottom line is they want to develop these 3 lots with 24 to 32 unit apartment buildings that need water.
Right.
My question is, why don't we get clarity on when the water is going to be ready to be rolling.
Dave, I may have not clarified it before. There is clarity from Mr. Conti, and I'd be happy to share his message to us that the water will get done by early completion by early 2025. And he said that could be moved up if other funding sources come available.
I heard you.
Yeah.
I heard you. It could be moved up. So, is that something that's gonna? I mean, I'm trying to get that not in concrete, but I want to get that firmed.
There may be another way that I can help explain that is from a planning and development stage. So 287, we're talking with the bank tomorrow to move towards close so that we can start our work in earnest on 287. Now that 18 months to 24-month project is going to be going very fast, and we bring 287 online with the existing water line that's in the street. And yes, it's going to max out whatever's left as far as capacity in 280 in Elm Street's water source. But as that building comes to completion, if we are in ownership of the lots, then we can be working towards a development plan, site water runoff, the path of the water lines from the new water line that will be installed towards the end of 2024 as our project, as the building 287 Elm Street is starting to fill up. So it's going to be a natural progression from 287 Elm right into the lots as we're developing those. Like you said before, you're not going to see a building immediately as soon as the water line's going up, but the groundwork that has to be done in between, if those lots are in our possession and we're paying taxes on them and we're maintaining them, then we can move faster towards the finished building in the end.
Yeah, that comment right there actually makes me feel a lot better. So about this. So I agree with all that stuff, and I said it. I stipulated to it. And then just one last point. I think we're lucky in the city that we got a nice organization like Wayfinders. So they're certainly a good resource, and they're right around the corner from where you're going to be developing, I hope. So I know they're based in Springfield, but they certainly have offices here as well. So we're lucky to have them in a sense. So, okay, I'm set. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Make a motion that we recommend adoption approval of the price.
I'll second the motion that we recommend this sale to the city council in full next week.
Great. All those in, do I need to do a roll call? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So moved. So we just voted, the city council, or the DGR committee voted unanimously in favor of referring this out of committee to the full city council. So that's on Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday, and the full council will vote on it. You don't necessarily need to come in person, but we appreciate you being here this evening to answer all of our questions. And we appreciate your investment and the work that you're doing. And it's nice to have local developers creating more housing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice night.
And thank you. Don't go too far, though, because we're going to have you guys are free to go.
I'll make a motion to take number 3 off the table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. So item number 3 this evening is filed by Councilor Bartley. With Holyoke celebrating its 150th anniversary as a city, order that DGR invite the committee chair, Aaron Vega, and any other committee members to a meeting to hear about any plans and to offer any suggestions. So that's why we have you here, friend. And anyone else? Okay. Well, I know that our administrative assistant Jeffrey is also closely involved. So thank you for sticking around.
Absolutely.
And Councilor Juan Anderson Burgos.
And all of you, after you're going to get all volunteers.
Yeah, and once you rope us into helping you, we'll be glad to join you. Great.
So Is that taken off the table? Did I missed.
No, you're good.
Okay. So thanks for having me in. Again, good questions on the RFP process and getting these properties out. So we want to keep doing this so we can anticipate working with you some more on this stuff. So 150th. So 2 quick backstories, and that'll bring us to where we are. First, as you know, our office has sort of become a little more focused on tourism and marketing. Thank you for the approval of using Canvas Impact Fee funds to actually get someone who does this for a living, a professional firm, to be working with us. As I mentioned, that RFP hopefully goes out next week. And a lot of this stems from the tourism plan that was done in 2019 that, of course, hit the ground 3 months before the pandemic, so not much happened with that plan. And then, of course, we picked that plan back up 2 years ago and have been moving forward with it. Again, thank you to the council for the creation of the Tourism Advisory Committee. And we've also utilized our first funding from the Mass Gaming Mitigation Grant for a recent historic tourism plan. So we'll be sending that to you for your next meeting to take a look at that. Worked with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission on that. And of course, we established the Explore Holyoke website. So then cut to last summer, I have to give a nod to Gene Yonkers and Olivia Mazel from the Friends of City Hall, who were talking to Mayor Garcia about the 150th sesquicentennial, if that's pronounced correctly. And they were talking about doing a gala. And he said, what a great idea. And I believe he said something to the fact of, we should do celebrations all year long. And so a few meetings were called last summer, and I said, well, we'll help you out. You know, we can help out. We have some staff. We've been doing some events. We can help you out. And so I created a calendar invite and put all the people that were on the invitation into a calendar invite, and suddenly I was chair of the committee. So here I am before you as co-chair of the 150th committee. But all jokes aside, we have a great committee and a really exciting lineup. So basically, I'll just sort of give you the overview of where the committee's at now, and then again, of course, invite you all to participate, and especially people at home listening or watching this later. The 150th committee came together, and we're basically in charge of 3 aspects of the 150th celebration. Well, 4, if you will. The first one being general marketing. So with the website, with the funds that we have coming for a marketing director or firm to help us out, and some other grants that we have going, we're going to have funds generally for marketing of events. So we're going to be able to market all the events throughout the year. After much discussion, it was decided that we don't need to recreate every event, and we don't want to be the fundraiser for other events. Other events have their connections, have their ways of raising funds. So again, we took on that marketing. So all the events that you're used to through the year are just sort of under the umbrella of the 150th, if you will. So the parade this year is celebrating their 70-somethingth parade. Joe, I'm not sure what number it is, but it's also celebrating 150th, right? So it's the return of Celebrate Holyoke this year, celebrating 150th. Petronalis Festival, 150th, right? So we're just branding all those events that happen throughout the year. Again, so we can publicize those. We're actually working with Mass Live and the Republican on an ad campaign. The first event that the committee is in charge of, and I believe you should have gotten letters or should be getting them very soon, is April 6th. April 6th is a key date in the city of Holyoke. Actually, April 7th is a key date in the city of Holyoke. April 7th is the day that the city was incorporated 150 years ago. Usually what happens when cities are incorporated and City Hall is usually dedicated. There's a dedication ceremony. That never happened. So we're going to do a dedication ceremony that afternoon on Thursday, April 6th. Friday is Good Friday, so we figured there'd be more conflicts with that, so we'll celebrate a day early. Typical Hoyokers, right? We celebrate St. Patrick's Day for 3 months. So why not celebrate our incorporation a day early? That'll be the event, pomp and circumstance. Obviously, all the councilors, hopefully have comments from council president. The governor's been invited. Area mayors have been invited. Our state delegation, etc. It'll also be open to the public, of course. The next event that here at City Hall on the former front steps? Was that used to be the front of the building? Or so outside the mayor's office?
That is the front of the building.
It is the front of the building.
This is the side.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to always be cautious about history around the history buffs in the room.
Got it.
So this will take place on the front of the steps, and then there'll be a reception in the City Hall ballroom on April 6th. Yeah, probably late afternoon. We're waiting to get the governor's availability, as you can imagine. The second task that the committee has taken on, or the third task, I should say, is, of course, the gala. So there's a gala committee, and I just want to also stress there's committees for all this stuff. So people that want to get engaged, all of yourselves as well. I know I talked to Councilor Jordan the other day about a variety of things, and he wants to get involved in one of the committees that I'll mention in just a moment. So we do have the general committee meetings on the first and third Tuesdays of the month, but subcommittees meet as they need to and as they arrange their own schedules. So the third event is the gala, which will happen, and there's a gala committee. It's looking like it's going to be in October. Not anymore. We didn't want to compete with Fancy Steps, so we've sort of so now I think we're working with the Volleyball Hall of Fame to incorporate their induction ceremony into part of the gala events. I will just say 2 comments because again the committee is still working on this. It seems that the gala will be sort of a multi-venue, multi-location event. So the black tie, if you will, event will probably again happen in City Hall Ballroom. But then we want to have other events utilizing spaces around City Hall, some at obviously no charge and some maybe with a ticketed fee. So that's coming together as sort of a all day or at least late afternoon into the evening kind of event centered around City Hall. So utilizing the park, utilizing some of the restaurants and spaces around City Hall. And then the last thing that the committee is doing, and we're working actually with the Rotary Club on this one, is the time capsule and commemorative book. This is the fun one that I think everybody wants to really dig into. So when we talk about a time capsule, don't picture the little cylinder thing that we put into the ground and we forget where we buried. Folklore has it that there was a time capsule made in 1973, but no one knows where it is. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it was never actually finished, but we will get this one done. So we invite you to think. We invite you to think more about, if you will, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the tomb, right? That they carry. We picture something that's a significant size that'll be customized, branded for Holyoke. We're working with some people right now on that, and so it'll be a significant size, and it will live in the City Hall Ballroom, so it will not be lost. We'll have information about it, and we're working on a whole engagement with the community about what they'd like to see in it. And there'll probably be some kind of closing event that night. That'll happen in November. And so the commemorative book, if some of you have probably seen the 375th for Westfield. Some of you have probably seen the hospital book or the Irish Heritage book. This is a division of the Republican that does these commemorative books. So we'll be working with them. We're probably thinking about a 150-page book for 150 years of Holyoke. And through that, we're able to create something that obviously everyone can have. And sort of, we really want to capture this year. There's plenty of history written about Holyoke. There will be a history section, of course, but we really want to capture the events of this year, and so really have it be something that people want to see themselves in. So there'll be the history section, there'll be the industry section, there'll be the political section like you see in these books, but we really want to allow the book to really be the events through this year. The first event technically was, of course, the Three Kings Day, where Mayor Garcia kicked off, and we had a table there with 150th events information. But really, the real kickoff, if you will, the real sort of get everyone energized is, of course, Parade Weekend. So that time capsule and that commemorative book will sort of capture this year. For those of us, I guess I'll say for those of us over 30, just so you know, the time capsule plan is to open up in 50 years. So I probably won't be here, but our kids will be here. So we thought it'd be cool, instead of waiting 100 years when no one has a connection to it, people like our kids and our sons and daughters and people that are a little bit younger that are here in 50 years will say, I remember those days. I remember that concert. I remember, buying that book or whatever. And so hopefully they'll come back, or they'll still be living here, and they'll come and open that time capsule in 50 years. So that's the plan around that. The last thing I'll say, obviously most of this is going to be run through Explore Holyoke. There's already a 150th page set up there. Thanks, Jeff. If you scroll down just a little bit, one thing with the website, you see that there's these stories. So if you could just hit the More Stories button, you might hit it twice because there's going to be a couple rows of this. So this is the latest press releases. And then, of course, and I'm going to actually rearrange this tomorrow, so these are back on top. If you hit the button one more time. So the current press releases are there, a couple new videos that have come out about some previews about Celebrating Holyoke, and then there's the volunteer form, and of course we'll have sponsorship information, but some of the brief history. And if you scroll back up just one more time, Jeff, or I'm sorry, so one that says, I'm looking for the one that has all the events. A year of events, yeah, can you click on that one? So this is intertwined with our calendar, right? So if you go to the calendar, some paper, so these are all the events that are already happening this year. If it's highlighted, see the ones that are already highlighted? They're good doobies because they've put their event on the calendar so we can cross-promote it and get things together. But that is our list of events through the year. Again, there'll be more, but these are the ones that we sort of knew about and some of the organizations that we initially reached out to. So those are the events that are already scheduled, more to be added. But again, you can see the ones that are highlighted. If you hit one of those, anyone, it'll bring you to the calendar event and give you information about that. So we really encourage people, obviously, to utilize the calendar, to utilize Explore Holyoke, and all the information for 150th will be there. And then, of course, we'll be using traditional media, the Republican, the Town Reminder, El Sol Latino, El Pueblo Latino, and then depends how the funding comes in, maybe even a few commercials. So.
Thank you very much. I know it's a lot of work that goes into it. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Aaron, for your work, co-chair, and for the whole committee. It's fascinating. And Jeff's been keeping me up to date, which I appreciate in a number of things. First, I just got to tell you on the logo seal, congratulations. That is so well designed and thought out, and it's very powerful. It goes a long way. I have to tell you, from my friends up at the Knights of Columbus, no one knows why, but there's a Centennial seal still up there, a big one. So they like to see if the city would like it back, maybe just to, won't fit in the time capsule, but maybe it can go somewhere in one of the events.
Maybe live in the ballroom, yeah.
We'll get it down to you.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is true, it could be a rumor, but that the tunnel we know that exists that went over during Prohibition to the old Bud, I'm pretty sure the time capsule is inside that tunnel.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, so it goes under Dwight Street somewhere, and not, it might just be a rumor. You know, and the ghost Wilbur's still alive. In spirit form.
We might be having some. I don't know what they're called, but spirit investigators. Is that the right word?
I think
they did something to Steerhurst. They might be coming to City Hall this year for the 150th.
Put those rumors to rest.
We'll send them down to find
Sunday evening, Wilbur tapped my shoulder, and don't know, but I'm a believer.
I'm a believer.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you for the hard work, and thank you for the update.
And thanks to the committee. It's a lot of volunteers, and we're looking for more. So.
Awesome. And I will just say that 2 minutes ago, Councilor McGee can agree, someone made noise back there. So
did happen
I'm just saying. Councilors? Yep, Councilor Bartley.
Aaron, thanks for being here.
Of course.
I'm happy I filed this order because that's kind of what we want to do in this committee. We certainly want to use this medium that a lot of us know that so many Holyoakers watch this, right, Aaron?
Yep.
I mean, you're going to get calls tomorrow. I know you are, and that's the point.
Yep.
I'm ecstatic about the website. I hope that's promoted and linked as much as possible on Facebook and all the other social media stuff that I don't really use, but other than for UMass stuff. I always found my UMass hoops through that, but that is just really critical. And as in terms of getting the word out for sponsorships, I know Dennis covers us pretty regularly through this, and I'm sure he'd love to do a follow-up story as well as the other papers and TV media, the regular media that older people watch, and not everybody watches, really, 40 and 22 and all that. Certainly love to get the word out as much as possible. I think also you want to make reference to what Mayor Murphy created with the video, and that we supported at City Council. Mayor Murphy, I've credited him before, I'm going to do it again now. His 8 months in office really, it was great for a lot of reasons that I've said numerous times. And one of the things he did was he wanted to help market the city, and use funds that were not long. I mean, it's money. I mean, it's $30,000. I think if I remember right, Joel will correct me, but it was. I think that video is going to be unveiled on February 9th, I believe.
Yep.
On Race Street at I think it's 5:30 registration. The film tees off at 5:50 or something along those lines. How long is the
Good.
film? And
Good.
how long is the film? And why don't you just tell us about it a little bit?
Great. I wish it was longer. So the film is just about 7 minutes long. It's we took what Mayor Murphy had started, and we did work with the company, and we did get some more additional shooting, some more interviews, and so it's sort of a nice combination of Mayor Murphy and Mayor Garcia in there. Victor from People's Bank is in there. The Cajun ladies from Springdale Diner. Mike Leclerc from Paper Box Company. John Hazen from Hazen Paper. I shouldn't start naming names because you know you're going to forget somebody. But of course, George Mulvey from the Volleyball Hall of Fame and Susan Kelly from the Children's Museum are also in there. So yeah, it's great. We're really happy with the video. We are going to screen it on the 9th down at Divine Theater. But hopefully then after that, we're going to put it all over marketing, Facebook, and get it out there. People can share it. It's a show. It's an interstitial show, if you will, and it's a filler on PBS. It's called Viewpoint. There's a quick introduction from Dennis Quaid. Unfortunately, he doesn't say Holyoke. It's just sort of the general opening. But it's in between shows on PBS. If there's a show that's only 42 minutes, they put in these interstitials to close the gap. So they'll be shown nationally. It kind of highlights a little bit of our tourism. You see some video from the mall. So a lot of sort of come to Holyoke to shop. Then a focus on our manufacturing, as I mentioned, Hazen Paper and United Paper Box Company, and then of course just the people in general, and sort of talking about the different events and new restaurants and new businesses coming in. So yeah, really psyched for that video. I think we've sent you the link. If you don't have the link, I'll send you the link. Once after next Thursday, share it far and wide. And yeah, we're excited about that. And again, there's a couple other videos on the website, so we're really trying to use more media like that. Penny from the Wisteria-Hearst is kind of heading up our communications committee, and she's already in talks with Mass Appeal about getting on Mass Appeal, and so all those shows we definitely want to get on daytime TV as much as we can. And then just the last comment I was going to make: the website, we love it. We get lots of comments on it. It's really great, and I just got to give a shout out to a company here in Holyoke, City Vision, that put it together. They've been in Holyoke for a long time. For context, I don't remember the date, but for context, they had an office here at the Prudential before they had to close it down from the roof. Then they moved to Open Square, and now they're at the Steam Building. So they've never left Holyoke, a small company, but really great guys, and they did the site.
Yeah, that's great news, and it is pronounced Sesquicentennial.
Okay,
so we
all right.
can. I'm sure we'll all get the hang of that
Yeah,
before
exactly.
before the end of the 150th. So this is great, and I look forward to talking about it next
Excellent.
week.
Yeah, happy to come back in, and once we have more sponsorship letters, will be going out next month. Tomorrow, I guess, is next month. So February, more information on the book, and then of course, I think we'll be sure to have a presence at the parade and race day weekend, and getting all those Holyoke tchotchkes and merchandise out there this year.
Cool.
Great.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion that this was complied
So
with.
moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Have a great night, guys.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, you
Make
too.
a motion to take number 4 off the table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So item number 4 was filed by Councilors Bartley, Puelo, Tallman, and Bacon, that the City Council invite a representative from the Appalachian Mountain Club of Boston to a future DGR meeting to discuss various hiking trails it maintains in Holyoke, including the New England Trail that crosses state property from Route 141 to Route 202. Also invite Holyoke's Conservation Director to attend if available, and other interested parties. And I do see that we are joined by our Conservation Director and some guests in the audience, if you'd like to come on in. Thank you for being here.
Great.
Thank you. Sorry. Great. Thank you for being here. If you'd like to just state your name and your title, it'd be great to meet you.
My name is Kristen.
Oh, make sure you're, as long as the green's on. There you go.
Yeah, okay, super. My name is Kristen Sykes. I'm the Director of Southern New England Conservation Projects and Partnerships for the Appalachian Mountain Club. I'm also a Holyoke resident, and I'm currently the Vice Chair of the Bike and Pedestrian Committee for the city.
Thank you.
My name is Liam Cregan. I'm the New England National Scenic Trail Coordinator for Appalachian Mountain Club.
Thank you. And there's no one else online, right? Just wanted to make sure. It's just you guys today, okay.
It's just
and then Yoni, of course. Couldn't
Yes.
forget. So I'm gonna, let you guys kick it off with an overview, and then we'll just open it up for questions, nice and easy.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us this evening. We really appreciate it. If you aren't familiar with the Appalachian Mountain Club, we're the oldest conservation and recreation group in the country. Actually, a little bit younger than the city of Holyoke. We're about to celebrate 150 years, founded in 1876. We have 11 chapters from DC to Maine, so we do have several staff, but we also do a lot of work with volunteers, and we have a Western Mass chapter, which includes the Connecticut River Valley and the Berkshires. And we lead lots of great trips on several recreational trails and on the river, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And I will introduce my colleague, Liam. Well, he already gave his title, so I'll pass it over to you.
All right, so I'm going to tell you all a little bit more about the New England Trail. So the New England Trail, in a nutshell, is a 235-mile hiking trail that starts down on Long Island Sound and traverses through 41 communities all the way up to the Mass-New Hampshire border. There's a connector trail from there called the New Hampshire Metacomet-Monadnock Trail, which connects to Mount Monadnock. So the New England Trail is a national scenic trail, meaning it's one of 11 trails that have been designated by Congress as something that's outstanding for its natural beauty. One of the most famous examples of a national scenic trail is the Appalachian Trail, just a few miles west of here. But we have one in the valley. It's been a national scenic trail since 2009, and that process began in the early 2000s with Congressman John Oliver, who basically got a feasibility study authorized by Congress, and then that feasibility study was completed, I believe with the assistance of the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission and FERCOG, and then Congress authorized the trail as a national scenic trail in 2009. The trail itself already existed for the most part before that designation, but what this does is gives the trail and the partners who manage it lots more resources through the federal government. So my salary is covered by the federal funding. We fund trail crews through there. We're eligible for lots of other funding because of this designation. How do we maintain the trail? We do that through volunteers and staff. We have a volunteer maintenance program, which we call the Trail Adopter Program. There are 19 total sections of the trail in Massachusetts, and I should mention that AMC only maintains the trail in Massachusetts. There's another organization in Connecticut called Connecticut Forest and Park Association, who shares a similar role in that state. So we have 19 sections in Massachusetts, and we have over 25 adopters. Some adopt in groups, some adopt solo, who go out and do basic maintenance on the trail. If they see bigger issues, like say a bridge is rotting or a sign needs fixing, they'll elevate that to a volunteer committee who I work with, and then we'll kind of prioritize trail projects from there. So with staff, and I think now I'll just jump into specific collaborations that we have with Holyoke. We have a youth trail crew who is out every summer since 2018, and this is a collaboration with Mass Hire Holyoke. The funding comes from the National Park Service, and essentially what we do is we get 6 to 8 kids out on trail for 6 weeks in the summertime, and they learn job skills like how to use hand tools, how to construct trails, how to maintain trails. And that's been going on since 2018. I was actually, my first year with AMC, I was a seasonal employee, and I started in this position in 2021. I had a chance to work with that crew their inaugural year, which was pretty neat. So yeah, that crew's been great. I mean, it's been something to kind of bring a job opportunity to youth in the city. and also to get kids out into nature and kind of introduce them to outdoor skills. Holyoke, as I think most of us know, a lot of residents don't have access to outdoors, and that's something we're interested in kind of increasing opportunity for. So that's the Youth Trail Crew, and we have another great season of projects lined up for 2023. We have done a few collaborations with the Conservation Department. Namely, last year, Yoni hosted a youth trail crew through the city to do work on the Glautak Woods property. They worked with an organization called Green Agers to hire their youth trail crew, also through Mass Hire, so we co-promoted those opportunities together, and our trail crew got out on the Glautak property, the Glautak crew got out on the New England Trail, and I believe they all got to meet the mayor, which was kind of fun. And also, we have continued to support the city's efforts to fund the revitalization of Anniversary Hill Park, mainly through letters of support for grant applications. I think we've had some discussions with Yoni about the potential for AMC's contract crew services. We have professional trail crew services as well to do some of that work, but that's not set in stone. A few more things that I'll mention about the NET is we have started a collaboration with Holyoke Community College. They have a professor there named Sage Franatovich. She's a botany professor, and she wants to do an unpaved accessible trail, I think on an existing trolley line that's kind of behind the campus. And as part of that, she also wants to do improved signage, both navigational and kind of trail markings on trees. And that would be a service learning component that students at the college would do. And so AMC Trails staff have been working with SAGE to prepare what's called a Mass Trails Grant. It's a funding source through the state to do that work. And I think they're submitting it tomorrow, or they already have because the due date's tomorrow. So hopefully that gets funded, and we'll kind of get that built and kind of collaborate with SAGE on that. I think one of the exciting things about that project is that there's a safer connection. People could go drive to Holyoke Community College and hike up to the New England Trail. So that's a good opportunity there, which isn't really happening yet because there isn't great navigation on those trails. And then one more thing I'll mention before I pass it on to Kristen to talk about another trail is we received funding to potentially do some bilingual signage, which we're hoping to post at bus stops, which will talk about recreation opportunities in the city, including the New England Trail, but other recreation opportunities as well. And that was Kristen's idea, so I will just give her credit for that and pass it to her.
Great. Thanks, Liam. So another trail that AMC helps oversee is called the Connecticut River Paddlers Trail, and it's a paddling trail that would traverse from New Hampshire all the way to the Long Island Sound free primitive campsites about every 5 miles or so. And so the last decade, we've worked to build more campsites in Massachusetts. So we did build one a little bit south of here, Fanny Stebbins. It's on the Silvio Conti Fish and Wildlife Refuge in Longmeadow. And it basically every 5 miles you can paddle along the river. We produce maps, so we have a new map for Massachusetts and Connecticut. One of the places where people can stop over is Holyoke Rose, which I understand there's efforts there through ARPA funding and other things to enhance the infrastructure there, like the accessible dock and things like that. So we work with Holyoke Rose as a stopover for people, and then of course have been actively engaged over the years with Holyoke Gas and Electric, since they do provide a free shuttle for people to be able to get around the dam if they're paddling down along the river. And our Western Mass chapter has a paddling committee, and so they've worked with the city in the past to be able to offer learn how to paddle opportunities for folks who want to get out on the river too, so providing like that type of instruction. And yeah, I think that's about it, but we're just excited to be able to, as was talked about earlier with Whiting Street, make more people aware of the fantastic recreational resources in Holyoke, and then through things like the transit to trails, making sure that people who don't necessarily have a car or can't drive can be able to use public transit and maybe even Valley Bike Share and things like that to be able to get to some of these. So yeah, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for a great presentation. It's great to learn about all of this. I'm going to open it up to questions. Go for it. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for being here. So I'm Dave Bartley. So you and I spoke on the phone a few times and emailed each other numerous times. So I certainly want to thank my co-sponsors on this, Will and Pete and Linda, on this. They're all, being a conservative person is really the basis of that is conservation. So we're, while we kind of vote a little conservative sometimes, but we're really at heart we want to preserve things, and nature being one of the most important things. And what you heard earlier in that presentation, and I'm going to digress for half a second, is that when Mike and I came up with that order relative to the Whiting Reservoir, Mike's thinking was, geez, wouldn't it be nice to do some water bottling? And wouldn't it be nice to have some other kind of uses for the water for commercial development? And as I watched more of the meetings and certainly read the report, you realize just how important the conservation part is of that. And what one of the participants, Mr. Craven, he didn't say it tonight, but he said it to me before. Is that the Whiting Street Reservoir is really akin to Holyoke National Park, and that's Mr. Craven's, and I'm paraphrasing it, but it's something to that effect. And so it's 390 acres there, and so we realize after reading the report and hearing from them and seeing how sincere they are and watching the meetings that the conservation is an important part of it. But what you're saying, and what I'm so grateful to hear about what you're doing, is that, well, it's not just supposed to sit there, it's supposed to be used in somehow. And I think that's what you two are advocating for. And now what I learned tonight is I wasn't aware of the transit to trails. I'm glad to know about that. I want to hear more about that. I want to learn more about that. I didn't know about HG&E. It doesn't shock me how they help with circumnavigation. I mean, HG&E, they're just a wonderful organization, and how they were created in the 19th century. I mean, it's so amazing to me that thing was made up, in just those times. Just such forward-thinking individuals created the G&E. It's amazing, and is led by forward-looking commissioners and a manager too. I mean, they just and they're all about conservation as well. So, and then I learned about other things too. One of the things I love statistics, and so I love to hear more about how you promote this, whether it's through your website, whether I'm sure I know you gave some handouts, which I obviously haven't read them because I just got them tonight, but I'll look at them more, and I want to read more about how people can get involved, especially Holyoke people. I'm grateful about the bilingual thing. Councilor Rivera can maybe give you some input about where that should be promoted. I'm Councilor Puello as well, the Wards 1 and Ward 2 councilors. But any of us can. Certainly I'm sure they would be happy to sort of give you some thoughts about where you can promote this signage, and certainly reach out to the Boys and Girls Club, to Girls Inc., to the YMCA, which services scores and scores and scores of people of color that really for no charge, and they always looking for opportunities to provide diverse experiences, and I'm happy to hear about the professor too that wants to do that. I didn't know, but that doesn't shock me because HCC has always been kind of a forward-looking entity as well. So that's really all I have to say. Other than I'm grateful to learn more about this. I want to learn more. I want to learn how you're going to interact more with city residents, and then in a year or two, I would certainly like to have you come back here. So I don't like when these things are, we don't want to harp, but your time is very valuable. I know you live in Holyoke, but you're coming from the eastern part of the state, and it's a pain to get here, and we all get that. And we're grateful that you're here. Well, okay. Well, that's good because I tell you, nobody ever thanked me for all the millions of times I drove to Boston, and I wish they did. Believe me, all the meetings I had. What's that? If only there was a train. That is not far away, and don't forget that just how grateful we are for the North-South Rail. You know, everybody blasts Governor Malloy in Connecticut, but he was a forward thinker, and that's why you have the Hartford line, which is hugely popular. And I'm thinking that we're going to get not just an east-west line, but a northern tier line as well. So those things are coming. But at any rate, I'm glad you're here. I want you to come back, and I want to learn more about the initiative you raised today, and I want to hear more about ongoing programs. And anytime you want to send us information, anytime you want to send links, I'm sure that the mayor or OPED can certainly link. We want to have those on our website and link them to for accessibility, especially for Holyoakers that look at the website all the time, and that's how they get their information. And you might just be able to reach out to people that you're gonna inspire people to do the volunteer programs and then get involved with the outdoor natural world. So this is a good beginning. So thanks.
Sorry.
I was just going to add on how we publicize. So we do have hard paper maps. We recognize that lots of people like to use those. We also do have apps, so you can get on the Connecticut River Paddlers Trail or the New England Trail using your phone, and it's Google Map based, so it tells you where there's parking, and you could probably even use it actually to figure out the bus and plug in where you are and get there. Also, our website is really easy, outdoors.org, and all the activities are free. And our chapter, Western Mass chapter, leads all kinds of things. There's a bike committee, biking. You could volunteer with the New England Trail, hiking. If you want to become a trip leader, there's family outings. And then we do also have a place where you can stay. You can camp or stay in cabins. Actually, in Westfield, it's called the Noble View Outdoors Center, and actually has a view of Springfield. And a lot of our trail crews, in fact, I think Liam might have worked out of there as well. So we're excited for more folks to get involved and to be able to experience the outdoors and to demystify it, that you don't have to have all that rugged gear and go to these faraway places. You can experience pretty wild nature not too far from your house here. So
it's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor McGivern?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation this evening. Just adding to what Councilor Bartley said, tonight we're not just live and streamed, but we're being videotaped, and this will go on our website. And both your presentations were informative, and all of our constituents will be listening to it at their fingertips whenever they wish to. I grew up as a kid in Mount Tom Reservation, so we used to love to go up there to hike and do different things and had a lot of good times. I knew about the trolley lines going up to Mountain Park. I knew about the trolley lines going up to the Summit House. I didn't know there was a trolley behind the college. That's interesting. You learn something.
Not sure if it is a trolley line. It just looks like one.
Looks like one. Well, if it looks like one, it just might be one, Liam.
Joe, it's absolutely a trolley line.
And we know that this is from the source because
there's absolutely the trolley line. There's no question about it.
Yep. And the one nice thing about the college that a lot of people don't know, it's the official beginning of the Berkshires. So the Berkshires need us in the Pioneer Valley to understand what they are. And we like telling them that every now and then. But your presentation was very informative and much appreciated.
I don't see any other. Are you good?
Madam Chair, I'm going to make one more point, if I may.
Sure.
And so what Councilor McGivern said is absolutely true. And what you discerned is accurate. That was a trolley line behind the college, and it feeds towards Westfield, and it connects Joe with, and the trailhead there is at East Mountain Road. When you are at that Four Corners, you take the left towards the golf course. The trailhead is about 300 yards on your left-hand side. So that's where that is, and that cuts back from cuts back behind the college. One thing I neglected to mention, but you brought it up. So HCC is going to have a connecting trail to the New England Trail. Did I hear you say that right?
Yes, well, potentially. It's kind of contingent on grant funding.
Fantastic. And so the New England Trail absolutely traverses Route 202, which is it's also the Purple Heart Trail that we named here. We had a sign in here somewhere about that, but it was around here somewhere. Maybe it's in the back, but there's signage all around the community for the Purple Heart Trail. That is Route 202. One of the things I've noticed over the years is so that's a state highway, and you're not allowed to park pursuant to mass law on a state highway. Nevertheless, I do see cars parked on Route 202, and I think it's kind of like a nod and a wink because state troopers go by there all the time, and I strongly doubt they're ticketing anybody because they realize it's hikers. My point in saying this is, one, is that we know we can connect to the New England Trail off of Old East Hampton Road, which is, anybody from the city who's lived here knows that is a little offshoot across from the gate to the Whiting Street Reservoir. And numerous cars parked there. And what they generally do is they cross 141 and they go hike around the res. And that's great. And we're psyched to know that. But we also know that there's signage that you can go the other way and go to the New England Trail. So that is a really great parking area. Generally, it's policed as well. So if there's a problem there, and there have been problems, the police go by there and they monitor it. What isn't happening is that there is not an official parking spot off of 202, other than like the ad hoc one that's there now. And I'd love to see some way, if you two could think about that and maybe connect with Mr. Conti, who was here earlier from the Waterworks, or the commissioners. And certainly I'd like to hear more about finding parking at HCC, which would probably be the best of all worlds, just to have appropriate signage so you can park here and then you can hop on a trail and go from there. So, because we know that a lot of us, what you said was really informative to me, how about people take transit to trails and all that. That's great, but a lot of people just take their own car there. We all know that. So it would be nice if you could think about that and reach out to those resources, whether it's HCC trustees or the water commissioners at the Waterworks. Mr. Glogauer certainly knows everybody, and he's now very familiar with the whole community, so he can help you with any of those resources. Okay? Great. Thanks. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. Yoni, do you have anything to add since you were invited this evening?
Thank you. Yeah, not too much. Just to say from my end how cool it's been to work with Liam and Kristen and Appalachian Mountain Club on the New England Trail, and to have collaborators who are really aligned with our mission of conservation in Holyoke. We're about protecting land and special natural areas, but also making them accessible and available to all the community. So it's really great to work with an organization that is aligned with our values that way.
Awesome. And thank you for all the work that you do to support them and you guys as well for the updates. I think there's a lot that we all learned this evening. So with that,
A motion that the order is complied with.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much
Yeah, nice
for
to meet
being
you
here.
both. Yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you so
coming out.
much. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for that. I'll make a motion to suspend the rules, take 5 and 6 off as a package, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right. I just lost my agenda. Hold on.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right, items 5 and 6 is a package. Item 5 is ordered that Cataldo Ambulance come before a future DGR meeting to discuss neighborhood concerns relative to parking, upkeep, siren noise, and any other relevant issues at the South Street location. This was referred to us, obviously, the mayor, the fire department chief, and I believe we are joined by the chief this year. We were. And we might have, oh, yes, we are. There he is. Sorry about that. And the commissioners and Cataldo Ambulance. Our administrative assistant also let me know that management at Elmwood Towers was notified but I don't believe anyone was able to make it. So, and then item 6 is the City of Holyoke license agreement with Cataldo Ambulance at 490 South Street, 600 High Street, and 33 Whiting Farms Road. For those who are watching, this is in our committee because City Council approves license agreements for longer than 30 days, I believe. So those are the 2 items, and I guess we can start with Frank. Are you here with Cataldo?
I am.
Great. So would you like to just kind of give us an overview of the South Street location? And I'll also refer to the maker of the order, Councilor Bartley, if there's anything you wanted to start with.
Frank, why don't you just introduce yourself, and Chief Katalevich, why don't you just introduce yourselves, and then I'll ask a few questions.
My name is Frank McNeil. I've been associated with the 911 provider in the city of Holyoke since the year 2016. I was with the prior provider. And it is a privilege to provide services to the city of Holyoke and its citizens. It's a great city to work in. We're very fond of it. Our crews love working here. Councilor Bartley, we've communicated several times on situations similar to this, so we always welcome the opportunity to speak about it and address any concerns.
John Katalevich, I'm a fire chief.
Okay, who else is here? Is it Frank and John? Is that it?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And Frank, just remind me. So your association with Cataldo is what exactly?
I am the senior director of operations for them. I have primary responsibility for the operations of the western part of the state.
All right, so I can't do better than that. So thank you both for being here. I'm just going to start with Chief. Overall, just first of all, let me just step back. So, with the chair's right. What the City Council does for item 6, that's pursuant to ordinance, is that the City Council must approve any lease, license, or conveyance, anything to do with any city-owned building, lot, whatever it is, room, whatever it is. The way the system works is that the mayor negotiates. City council has no role in negotiation, but everything has to be approved by the city council. That's in the law. That's a city ordinance, which is a law. And that's just, I know, Frank, you know that. I know, Chief, you know that. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times, sure. The public doesn't quite grasp that. And so negotiations start and end with the executive, but approval must, for anything, no matter what the duration, the approval has to be by a majority vote at the city council, not a 2/3, a simple majority vote, so it'll be 7-6. That's how the system works. And I'm not really gonna, gonna get into too much about the black and white on the lease. What I'm mostly interested in is, first I want to hear from the chief about the fire department's experience with Cataldo so far, and then I want to follow that up with a couple of questions with Frank about South Street. So, Chief, why don't you just sort of kick it off and your take to date?
We've had a pretty good experience. Obviously there's going to be some growing pains at the beginning, that transition between Action and Cataldo. We had some hiccups in it because Action kind of stopped covering the city, especially going into like the last week where Cataldo had to come in probably a little and start basically covering the 911 forum. Since they've been doing what I feel is a really good job. I haven't had too many complaints. Looking at it, we kind of look at some of our stuff as far as they're not asking for a lot of aid from anyone else at this point. They look to have ironed that out with their staffing, and it looks like they're handling their business on their own.
Okay, and Chief, so where are they? They're at South Street. They're at the main High Street. What do they have for staffing and equipment, and where are they located?
Okay, they're dispatching the Holyoke resources out of our dispatch center at our headquarters on High Street, and they have an ALS ambulance unit that's dispatched out of our Whiting Farm station.
Okay, and for equipment, what is it that equipment and staff? What is it? So it's 24/7 every day of the year, correct?
Yes, sir. They have 2 dispatchers working out of our dispatch, which would just be their comms equipment that they have. And then they have a single ALS ambulance working out of our Whiting Farm station with their 2-person crew.
Okay, and then other than, of course, there's going to be growing pains, and we get that. But in your opinion, those are behind us, and now we're kind of moving forward with day-to-day operations, and the line of communications are pretty good?
Yes. I'm in contact with Frank quite a bit, and Rock T-Bolt, who's another one of their supervisors in the city. A pretty open line of communication. As far as it's going right now, it seems to be going fairly smooth. As far as them in the stations, it's talking to people up at Station 5, it's going very well. We actually have a committee that between our people and Cataldo, it's people out at Station 5 and Cataldo where they talk about any issues and resolve them that may come up.
Yeah, that's John. That's really good news. I can tell you, I've had firsthand experience not only with HFD, with just how well trained HFD is, because we had a situation that I've been involved in 2 of them directly in the last few months, where ambulance and fire services have been needed for emergency situations, and they both turned out very well. And it was really with Cataldo and really with HFD on both occasions. So that's my take. But I'm more interested in your take ongoing. And so John, just so I'm clear, so does Cataldo kind of interact with you regularly, with the commissioners regularly, and with your frontline staff? So that's all going pretty well.
Yeah, not so much commissioners. I'm pretty much the point of contact instead of the fire commission. I'll give a report to the fire commission if they want anything or if there is any kind of issue, but we haven't really had anything come up that would need to go to their level. Besides, obviously the contracts and the leases and stuff that the fire commission chair had to be part of. Frank's got he corresponds with myself, with the executive deputy and our training officer, because they actually do all of our training also per contract. So they do all of our EMS training to keep our EMT certified. We have about 90% EMTs in the department now, and they provide all of our EMS training to keep our certifications up to date.
Oh, that's something to brag about. So that's pretty impressive. So even though Holyoke doesn't have its own ambulance service, you said 90% of the department is EMT certified?
Yes, sir. We've been mandated as EMT since 1997. So anyone hired from 1997 moving forward is a mandated EMT.
Okay, so that's really important for the public to know, and we'll try to remember to repeat that next Tuesday. And like I said, I know that the media covers us, and hopefully they'll promote that a little bit too, John, because that's just really important. All right, John, thank you. Frank,
Yes, sir.
Frank, my friend.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, Frank, you just heard me make compliments about Cataldo, so you know I have a warm feeling about Cataldo, right? But
Yes,
I don't live across the street yet.
I know.
in Elmwood Towers. But I cannot tell you, and other than times I called you or the predecessor. I'm not going to say his name because he's now retired. I don't want to, he's happily in retirement. I'm not going to pick on him. But he's a real gentleman, and so he's very gracious to me over the years. But at Station 3, 490 South Street, Frank. So all I can tell you is the following. When I go by there, although I went by there tonight, didn't look as bad, but when I see cars from your employees parked on the front lawn, parked wherever they feel like it on Charles Street, it doesn't give me a warm feeling. I don't like it. And I get calls on that. But I've seen that myself multiple times. So they want to park everywhere on the side. I realize parking's tight, but you know what? They could make arrangements potentially with Elmwood Towers to park diagonal across the street behind the Hibiscus. I don't know if there's extra parking spaces there, but instead of parking on the lawn, parking angled, or parking any haphazard way, they could do a lot better than that. If people do live there and they're across the street and they got to look at on that street, they got to look at that all day long. I get the calls. I don't feel like getting the calls anymore. So I'm hopeful that we can work out the parking situation. The main call that I get, which I just ran into himself this morning at the Stop and Shop, are the sirens. And, though there's a time and a place for sirens, but blasting them at 3 in the morning. Now, fortunately, I will say this. Years ago, when I first got on the board, I was getting a lot of calls about staff hanging out outside at after hours, having very loud conversations, which, believe it or not, voices do carry across the street to Elmwood, especially in the summer when people with their windows open. They don't really feel like listening to conversations. I mean, they're not profane or not inappropriate. They're just loud. And so they don't feel like listening to it, and so they call me. And so I'm just reiterating that. The sirens are another issue. Whether it's if it's 11 in the morning, when there's more of a traffic situation, or 5 in the afternoon, okay, I get it. But there should be a touch of discretion used at 2 a.m., 5 a.m., that sort of thing. It just came up again this morning, so I know it has not been curtailed, although it's been said to me numerous times by the vendor. I'm not saying anybody in particular, but by the vendor, that we will talk to them and we'll deal with it. But I still hear about it. And so again, these are not things we can solve today, but I'm hopeful that with the parking situation, the overall maintenance and appearance of the building, I get the fact that that's why I wanted the chief here. I get the fact that it's some of those monies are supposed to go back into the infrastructure of the building itself. But it would be nice if the building looked a little nicer. If we're not using the equipment, the doors could be closed, just like they are at all the other fire stations. The doors are always closed and not left open 10, 12 hours a day with people sitting. I'm not saying it happens regularly, but it has happened in the past. Just kind of a better maintenance appearance with keeping the Charles Street and South Street residents in mind, and Chapin as well, because they call me as well. Just keep in mind that there are people that live there that want to have a nicer appearance and to the extent they can in the neighborhood. They do understand the importance and it's just really important that you're here in the city. I, for one, and I know they're grateful that you're right there on South Street. So to have an entity like that directly across the street from a senior living center, basically, or low income, it's just really, really important. And so we don't want you to go. We want you to be here. But I just want you to, you don't have to answer anything now, but I just want you to reflect upon that, and to the extent you can, try to curb whatever you can relative to noise and lights and just overall appearance of the property. Thank you.
There is an announcer debate here. I agree with you 1,000%. And I think what we have faced as we started out this contract on the beginning of October was a logistics issue. We're required to have 6 ambulances in the city, and South Street only really accommodates 3. Because there was only 30 days between the awarding of the contract and the beginning of our functioning here in the city, it really didn't afford us an opportunity to put a backup base in play. Since probably 3 weeks ago, we have taken possession of a building in Springfield where we're putting extra ambulances there. Those were those ambulances that you may have seen parked on Charles Street. So this was sort of an organic change that you've seen. This meeting is kind of a coincidence from that perspective. But the bigger problem, and I think because all of those parking issues, I think are going to solve themselves with the addition of these other bases. But the bigger problem that you mentioned, and it's a historic one, is the sirens. One of the things that we've done recently is to create a layered or tiered approach to our dispatch. We've got a hot response and a cold response, or a priority 1 or a priority 2, depending on what nomenclature you use. But a priority 2 is a call that has been determined to be not critical, not life-threatening, and we are responding to those calls with no sirens, no lights. We're going with the flow of traffic. So this should not only quiet the neighborhood surrounding South Street, but it should quiet the streets of Holyoke in general. About 40% of our calls are what we would determine as a priority 2. And that would mean about 4,000 or 5,000 calls a year. So that should quiet the neighborhood. But the bigger problem is, and you're right, there's a big difference between 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning. During the day, the traffic there gets congested, particularly with the traffic light. If it gets backed up certain hours of the day, people don't move. So that is necessary. But you're absolutely right. The middle of the night, that should not be happening. And that is not our protocol. And I'm glad you've drawn that to our attention once again. And we will focus in on it. There really isn't an excuse for blasting a horn at 3 o'clock in the morning. There just isn't the traffic problem that we would experience during the day. So we will work on fixing that.
Thank you, Frank. Anyone else? Councilor McGivern?
Thank you, Chair. Frank, Chief, welcome. Frank, just a quick question on those 40% of those calls. How many calls are connected to transportation for the hospital?
We do about 3,500 calls a year for the hospital.
Okay. And that's not emergency, but more transportation to and from?
Correct.
Okay. And those calls originate through dispatch in our fire station?
Correct. Currently, they do.
Okay. And Chief, the dispatchers in the fire stations, are they just guests of the Holyoke Fire Station, or is there a contract with them?
They're part of the contract for the lease, the dispatchers. They're the High Street. That's all that we have in High Street on the 600 High Street building is the 2 dispatchers.
Is it their equipment or is it the city's equipment that they use?
That's their equipment. They brought their equipment in. They have their own internet and everything else that goes with it, phone lines. That's all theirs.
Thank you. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We're also joined by Councilor Rivera, Israel Rivera. Not seeing any other hands or comments or questions. It's my understanding we do need a vote for item 6.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we move this item 6 forward to the city council. I don't really want to make a recommendation. I don't think we have to make a recommendation. I'll just vote that we move it out of committee and move it forward to city council.
Second.
Under discussion?
Yep.
The only reason I say that, just to the chair and to the committee, to the public, I've reviewed all this, and I don't have a problem with it, but I think we need to understand it's a one-year contract, it's $1,000 a month. I don't feel like if I ask any questions about it, I feel if I can ask a question about it, I get into the negotiating world, and it's really not our role to do that. I don't want to do that. So I just think we ought to just move it forward to city council without any kind of recommendation. Then we can just vote to approve it, if you will, at full city council. But I don't know I can't say for sure if all city councilors or if everybody here has read this whole thing. And I have, but I don't want to say, just upon, I don't want to say anything more than that. I just rather just move it on to city council and then comply with our due diligence. That's all. But that's the reason why I made that motion.
Councilor McGivern?
Excuse me, I have no problem with that. I think the lease is fair for South Street. I think Cataldo, is, negotiated through the mayor, through the DPW, and I understand it looks like it covers all expenses, including utilities, which is important. Councilor Bartley makes a good point about upkeep. If Cataldo were to purchase a building in Holyoke, the operations cost, the overhead cost would be much higher, But I think there's a partnership here that's important with our first responders, known as our fire department, and with having an ambulance service that we can depend upon. And certainly we will keep an eye on that part of it. I am a little concerned, but not about this evening, what's in front of us, about the dispatchers, the agreement with the dispatchers on High Street in the fire station, but that's a discussion, I think, for another night.
Okay.
Yeah, can I just add to that?
Sure.
Because that is a concern, what was just raised right there. It's a concern, but I like the word that the council uses, partnership. And I think that's what we have to keep in mind here, that there's a private sector, there's a public sector. It gets a little confusing, but that's why I was grateful to hear what the chief said. 90%, that should be, that's impressive. 90% are EMT certified. So I've seen it when I had to do my little quote unquote rescue over with a nun over at Barry Farrell's this summer, and then bang, Cataldo's there, and bang, the fire department's right there. Okay, Bartley, get out of the way because we know what we're doing. Good, I'm glad you do. But we just had to pitch in to help somebody who's in trouble. We all done it. So. But they jumped right on it and just took care of the situation and contained the issue, and that was great. And but there are other questions, and I'm grateful. I would just want to finish on this note. Grateful that Frank always listens and Chief always listens, and I just want us to. Again, the partnership is not just with the city, but also with the neighbors too. That's. The word partnership, I'm so glad Joe mentioned that, because we are partners here with the vendor, with the fire department, and with the abutters. That just has to be kept in mind. So when little things come up, I just want us to talk it out and figure it out and work it out together. Thank you.
Great. So we had a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. And then on agenda 5, I'll make a motion that it's been complied with.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Chief and Frank, and thank
you very
you
much.
to everyone that tuned in. We appreciate it. And Mike, of course.